Are children allowed to act like cats? Are they able to be furries in the public schools here in Idaho? Is Idaho purple? Vaccines, do you have to get them?
A slight divide in Idaho in the Republican conservative movement.
That's juicy. Is the governor a sellout? There's a lot of questions that a lot of people want some fast answers to. We're going to dive into the details, but let's rapid fire some. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Okay.
Vaccines, do you have to get them?
No.
Do you have to give them to your kids in order for them to go to school?
No, you do not.
Do you have to educate your children the way that the government wants you to educate your children?
No.
Is the governor a sellout?
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know how to answer that.
Coming up.
Okay, so that one can't be rapid fired. We'll have to dive into that a little bit deeper. Is Idaho purple?
No, but...
Okay, no, rapid fire here. So we will dive into what but means.
Okay.
Are they responsibly spending our tax dollars?
There are some that are. Some that really are pushing for it. But there are also some legislators that are not.
Can we live here freely, or do I need to live in a bunker in the ground?
You can live here freely.
Okay. Should I still build a bunker?
It probably wouldn't hurt.
Is it safe to live in Idaho when and if the end times come?
Yes, actually. Yes. Idaho is a bastion of freedom, and that's kind of why we moved here, because looking at what is happening in our world, we feel the safest here.
Do I have more guns than my neighbors? Do you have more guns than your neighbors?
That's a don't ask, don't tell question.
Does your dentist put fluoride on your teeth?
There are actually an assortment of types of dentists. So you can have the standard dentist that, you know, does all the allopathic regular medicine, and then you can also find some more, you know, homeopathic dentists here in Idaho.
Does your pediatrician vaccinate their kids?
So I actually use a functional medicine pediatrician, and so no, they do not push for vaccines. But if you want to find a doctor that's going to push for that, you can find that here as well.
Do you think the governor handled COVID well?
No, I personally do not.
Are children allowed to act like cats? Are they able to be furries in the public schools here in Idaho?
Unfortunately, yes. You will find that woke ideology has infiltrated Idaho. And I do believe that is because of technology. When we were kids, peer pressure existed just within like our local bubble, right? Now with technology, kids have the internet in their back pocket, and that's here too. Like, I mean, I have a 15-year-old, he does not have a phone. So you will find families here that reject that, but there still is a majority of the youth here has access to that, and that is where they're picking up on that pressure to like identify as a cat or identify as non-binary or gender fluid or any of these like woke things that are being pushed on our children. That unfortunately that does exist here, but I do believe that it's lesser than in the other states.
And for the most part, the rest of the community is not on board with it. And
yes,
you're definitely a weirdo if you show up at school looking like a cat and requesting a litter box in the bathroom. So are there litter boxes in the bathrooms where furries are present in school?
So I have heard a couple stories where a teacher got reprimanded because he had a student meowing at him, and that was here in the Treasure Valley. I have heard that, and the teacher got in trouble for not respecting that
that style of communication.
That style of communication. So I've heard some things about litter boxes, but again, I never know if it's true or if it's a rumor that's going around, but I have heard some things.
Video guy Ken is raising his hand over there.
I heard that there was a litter box in a school in my town. I actually reached out to the mayor. He went and checked and confirmed no litter boxes in that school.
Okay.
So, and he goes, and if there were, we would definitely be having some conversations.
And just to piggyback off of that, you just heard video guy Ken mention that he called and talked to the mayor I have also called many times and spoke to the local mayor in the city where I've lived. And it's not always about things that you would think that are big, serious political issues. I called to find out why we didn't have a community or a city pool. We sat and chit-chatted on the phone. And I mean, like, I call in the morning, his secretary takes a message. He calls me back after his lunch. Mayors here in the Treasure Valley, not the Boise city mayor. That woman avoids answering her phone like the plague. I know because I've tried to call and talk to her and I've never gotten a response. But in the suburbs here in the Treasure Valley, you can call and chit chat with them. So if you do hear more litter box style rumors, please call. And I'm curious, leave a comment in the comment box below. Like, have you ever talked to your local mayor just casually over tacos on the phone like that, like we have? Can I light fireworks on the 4th of July here?
Oh, this is a fun one, and my kids loved this. So yes, you can light fireworks. There are fireworks shows all across the Treasure Valley, like just in your backyard. You can go up and sit on a hill and you can just watch them, you know, all over.
If you're at home thinking about being brave and pulling the trigger like Kira did, as much as we love making these videos and helping you understand what it's really like to live in Idaho, really we love helping you relocate here and finding the freedom that Kira found and other families have found, even more than making these videos, believe it or not. So if we are providing you with value and you feel like we've been helping you out and you've been watching us, don't hesitate. Give us a call, shoot us a text, and write us an email. We've got your back when relocating to Idaho. Is there a problem with inbreeding in Idaho?
Oh my gosh. No, I don't know.
Okay. Has Bigfoot been confirmed here?
No.
So you're literally one of the most interesting, intelligent people I know. And I think people are probably desperate to hear about some more serious topics. And I mean, these are all serious and we're having fun rapid firing, but there's a lot of really important things that people are petrified these days. We've had our freedom stripped in different places. People have, you know, experienced a lot of trauma and they want to know that when they relocate to Idaho, that they genuinely are going to be free. You yourself relocated to Idaho during COVID. You're a political refugee and got involved in politics and made your way into becoming the executive director of the Republican Party for Idaho, which is another reason why I have a girl crush on you, Kira, and why so many of us do. So while a lot of this is fun and funny, like we do need to have really important conversation today about what's going on here, why it's going on, and what we really, really need to do to keep Idaho free, because moving's a pain in the butt. And once people are here, they don't want to pack up their bags and leave and go again. And if we can't keep Idaho red, then, like, not to sound like a pessimist, but I feel like if we can't keep Idaho red, like, this place is going to be Venezuela pretty soon.
There's not a lot of other places to go.
Yeah.
We did a lot of research, and we do believe that Idaho is the best option for a place to take refuge from the impending doom that might be coming to our country. I mean, we're leading up to a pretty critical election in November for president, for who is going to lead our nation. And I think that scares a lot of people because they're not sure what our country is going to look like in the next 4 years. And I do believe that Idaho is the best refuge to find community, people that are like-minded, have conservative values, want to raise their families around like-minded people.
Okay. The video can end now because the executive director of the Republican Party, who moved here as a political refugee, feels that even though we have a super woke mayor in Boise, we've got kitty cats in some of our middle and high schools, that this is still the best place in the country to be if you're looking for medical freedom, if you're looking for education freedom, if you're just looking for freedom. You heard it from the horse's mouth. You don't technically need a bunker to live here. So
yes,
we could probably end now, but it's super awesome that we have Kira here today. So we'll talk about some really important things. So let's do that. Let's get after it right now. First and foremost, what brought you guys here from California?
I was born and raised in California, and my husband and I lived in Southern California. In 2020, when COVID hit, we kind of were like, why are we paying this premium to live in this state where our kids couldn't go to school, they couldn't play sports, we weren't allowed to go to church, we couldn't even take them to the beach, like everything was shut down. And we were like, what has happened like to this state, this beautiful, you know, it's a beautiful state and wonderful weather, everything, you know, was great about California. And then we were like, we can't do anything and we're paying so much money to live here. So we moved to Idaho, it's like this bastion of freedom, right? We were able to immediately get our kids enrolled in school, start playing sports again, like finding a church and the church communities. There's just so many churches just alone in the Treasure Valley. Like, it just felt like a breath of fresh air to come to a state where we could engage with our neighbors. And, you know, like, our neighbors weren't shaming us for being out for a bike ride or a walk, like in California, where we felt that like shame of being a grandma killer because we were out during the peak COVID times. So
that's literally the opposite of the experience that I had being here in Idaho in 2020 because we came pre-2020. And I feel like just the small amount of change that we experienced, at least we had our community around to support us.
Yeah.
So hearing that your neighbors were shaming you is wild to me. I just assumed that everyone felt like,
no,
this is a bad situation and we got to band together.
No, in California, people siloed themselves into their homes. And I remember we came up to Idaho to visit my parents, and then we came back to California because we were just visiting for the summer. And I got a message on Facebook like, I hope you're going to quarantine for 14 days after you've been out and about in Idaho. You're going to be bringing, you know, this virus back and getting everyone in our town sick. And I was like, are you for real right now? Like, so we just really wanted to escape that.
You had zero political background and you're like, oh no, honey, like we're going to, this is good and we're going to keep it this way.
Yes.
So tell us how you got involved and what we need to do.
Yeah. So when we got here, we were like, oh my gosh, we live in a red state. It's a conservative, Republican state. And we started to realize that it's really easy to just become complacent and not pay attention to what's going on because you think like, oh, we're in Idaho, it's conservative, it's Republican, I'm going to just go off and live my life now. And we realized pretty quickly that knowing how far California slid, we don't want that to happen to Idaho. I started getting involved, my husband and I, politically, and I, you know, eventually became the executive director of the statewide Republican Party, which I had never planned that at all, you know. No. I have a design background, like, you know, I was never political this much in California, but coming here, it's a smaller state. It's, like you can actually get to know the political players in your community, whether it's your, you know, mayor, city council, or even like your state senator and representatives. Lower population, so like you can get to know the people that are actually in the state house. I started to get involved just locally, helping with campaigns. And then that slowly trickled into me taking on the role as the statewide executive director. So I have had the opportunity to travel the state and just like talk with so many people and have so many valuable conversations with multiple generations, you know, Idahoans that are fifth generation.
So cool. Such a different type of person.
Compared to like people who just moved here 3 months ago, right? So like I've gotten such a wealth of knowledge of what people that live here for a long time and people that have just moved here, what they're looking for and what they want. Everyone wants to keep Idaho a conservative state, a place where we are free. We are able to, you know, have limited government, not a lot of government overreach. Our tax dollars are spent wisely. The taxes are lower. Yeah. We have the freedom to choose how we educate our kids, if it's homeschool or public school or private school or charter school. There's so much more options, and it's just a freer state for raising your family.
Question on that, because I know one thing, I get phone calls every single day from people who watch this channel who are political refugees looking to relocate to Idaho. And one of the main questions that many people have is, what is the situation with the vaccines? Can I really move there, not vaccinate my kids, and then put them in a school? And do you think it's going to stay that way? People are feeling like, is this a dupe to get us there? And then they're going to do like a bait and switch on us and turn into California?
No, I do not think that that'll happen. Health freedom is so important here. There are so many groups. Important. I mean, we have actually some doctors that have come out of Idaho, like Dr. Cole. I don't know if you know him.
Love Dr. Cole.
That are like so focused on health freedom. There's Health Freedom Idaho. The vaccine thing, I do not believe that will ever change. I mean, I would hope not. We have multiple exemptions. There's religious exemptions, there's personal exemptions, there's medical exemptions. We were aware that the vaccine mandate was coming in California. We were like, this is going to happen, and we are not comfortable, with that. So we moved to Idaho for a lot of those same reasons. But no, I don't think it's a dupe. I don't think it will change. I think that there's just more of an understanding in Idaho that like the parents are parenting the kids, not the government and not the schools and not the teachers and the administrators. Like they want parents to be involved, and like if a parent is not comfortable getting their kids fully vaccinated, or they want to get their kids fully vaccinated, that's not a requirement. And if you want to submit that information, you can, but it's not required.
Where my son went to preschool, no, they did not want the people who were working to cover their faces. So he even during COVID was going to preschool, seeing his teacher's smiling face.
I think that's so valuable too, because that is how kids develop their language skills. They have to see the mouth moving.
We have a lot of topics to cover because people are really dying for this info. But to piggyback off of school, what is your experience, or just as far as the political climate is concerned? Right now, it's like you homeschool, great. There's so many homeschool co-ops, homeschool options. You want charter school? Cool. You want public school? Cool. Private school? It's like whatever you want to do. So
the nice thing about Idaho is it is such a free state for homeschoolers. Like there's no checking in with the government. There's no like letting them know if you want to homeschool, you can homeschool. Very different from California. I feel like in California there was so many hoops to jump through to homeschool your kids and give them the education that you want. So like there are so many different options here for educating your kids, whether you want to do it yourself, whether you want to do a hybrid program where your kids are homeschooled 3 days a week and they go to like a small learning space 2 days a week. There's private school, public school, charters. There's so many charter schools, specifically here in Treasure Valley. There's so many options that like it's tailored to fit what your family needs.
Yeah, it's really, really different. And here, you're not the odd man out if you're homeschooling your kid or giving them a classical education or whatever it is. It's really, really normal, at least in my community. I know your community, to on one street with 5 families, half of them might be homeschooling, and then the other sprinkle might be like charter and private school. It's not like the masses are in the public and then you're the one-off. It's exactly super, super common here. So that's pretty cool.
So I don't know if I answered fully how to get involved. There are so many different groups in Idaho. Whether you want to get involved locally in your Republican Party, every county has a local Republican Central Committee that meets. Then there's also outside groups. There's conservatives of Idaho, conservatives of Caldwell, Meridian, Boise. Like you can find groups locally that meet and put out voter guides, and they, get to know the candidates, so that if you are a busy mom and you don't have time to like do all this research to know, who you're going to vote for, you can find a couple friends locally that are involved in these groups and, get feedback from them. There's so many groups on Facebook that it's not that hard to just go find a conservatives of your town.
That is very accurate. I am in many conservative of blank, blank, blank for all the different suburbs so that I can keep track of what's going on and what the different vibes in the suburbs are, and also so I can get involved. But, you know, don't just trust the one person, their yard sign, and then be like, well, I saw a yard sign in Kira's yard, so that must be, although I will vote for whatever yard sign is in your yard, for sure.
In Idaho, like I said before, you can actually get to know your elected officials.
Yes.
And name recognition really is like key here. Like billboards and yard signs are huge. And so like you might just see a yard sign and a ton of them on the side of the road and on every public corner, you know, every intersection, and think, oh, I recognize that name. I'm going to vote for that person. They have a elephant on their sign, right? Do your research, like do your due diligence, actually ask your community, friends that you have, hey, do you know this person? Like, it's likely that somebody knows them, and they'll actually you'll be able to kind of look at their voting record, like it's all online or in one of those Facebook groups. You can find out like if their values line up with the same conservative values that you have, because we do kind of have a slight divide in Idaho in the Republican conservative movement.
That's juicy. Let's hear.
So we have, and this is not just for Idaho. This is nationwide. You can see this nationwide, that like there are elected officials that kind of serve more of the corporate lobbyists. They draft and write and pass laws that benefit big business. And
okay, will you give an example of that? I know we had been talking about Micron. That's probably a good example.
So an example. So the Idaho Launch Program gives $8,000 to a graduating high school senior to go and learn a skill set, go to a trade school, go to college locally within Idaho.
Basically, it's Micron getting paid to. Oh, you said it so good earlier. You were like,
so essentially,
taxpayers are paying Micron to train employees.
Yes. Okay. So like there's a bunch of big businesses here in Idaho, big corporations, billion-dollar corporations. And this kind of gives them the ability to train their future employees on the taxpayer dime, right?
Okay.
So
instead of spending the billions of dollars and the tax breaks they're already getting to train new people themselves, so the Idaho taxpayers are now paying to train future Micron employees.
Yes.
Got it.
That's just one example, but so the divide exists. There are legislators that really are focused on lowering taxes, spending the money efficiently and conservatively for the people. And then there are some Republicans that kind of are just in the pocket of the corporate lobbyists, and they just kind of do the bidding of those groups that want tax incentives and tax breaks and programs that benefit their business and really are not so much benefiting the people. In that sense, that's why I encourage people that when you do move here, don't check out and be like, oh, I live in Idaho now. It's a conservative Republican state, and I don't really have to pay attention to politics because it's going to be fine. No. Pay attention, know, who you're going to vote for, know what their values are, check their voting record, see like if they are really fighting for the people.
I saw you smirk. Is that because I read a thing that there's a few Republicans running right now who actually voted for Joe Biden?
There are. So like there are groups that in Idaho, they use the term conservative because, again, when you come from California, you vote for anyone that's a Republican because it's so rare to have a Republican, ever win in California.
Right.
In Idaho, it's so common for Republicans to win that there are a lot of more liberal Democrats that have to paint themselves as Republicans to get elected. You can look at their voter record and see if they're actually voting for conservative ideologies or if they are kind of skewing more liberal in their, but then they, hold a gun, wear a cowboy hat and go, I'm a conservative. So many people are busy with their lives taking their kids to, soccer and baseball and, going camping and snowboarding in the winter, because there's so much to do here in Idaho. That's the thing. It's like a lot of Californians that I've met have moved here, and they're like, they throw themselves into the lifestyle of outdoors,
right,
and just really great recreation, and then they kind of check out and don't pay attention to what's actually happening in our state. And then they get disappointed when they're like, wait, I heard this. And I'm like, get involved, like, just, it doesn't mean that you have to go to meetings every week or every month, but just like pay attention and know what's happening in our government.
So the mayor in Boise is super woke, super, super far left, and she's destroying the city. And everyone's a little stumped how the heck she got in the first time, and then now again the second time, and why that woman's not evicted. I know evicted's not the right word, but why hasn't she been evicted? And originally she ran independent. So hearing you talk about, they got the cowboy hat, they got the gun, like they got the disguise of conservative, but ultimately they're rhinos.
So I think, there's a misconception that I think a lot of people that aren't super politico tied in don't know. So our statewide is, they have to declare the party, what party they're a part of. Democrat, Republican, Independent, Constitution.
Okay.
Municipal elections, like the mayor, they do not have to declare what party they are. So she wasn't independent, she just didn't have to declare at all, whether she was a Democrat or Republican and oftentimes they do frame themselves as conservative, as she may not have ever said that she's a Republican. To the public, to convince, the voters to vote, right, they kind of frame themselves and make themselves look like they're more conservative than they are. And this happens in our legislature as well, with rhinos, with people that do declare that they're Republicans, but they kind of are a little bit more moderate or more liberal in their voting record, but they paint themselves as a conservative.
On that point, if you are thinking about relocating here, that's really why you have to give us a call. Not every suburb is created equal when it comes to the political landscape. And let me tell you, I ended up in downtown Boise surrounded by some wackadoodles. I'll explain that story later. We don't want that to happen to you. So please set up a time to chat with us so we can get to know you and your needs and help you figure out exactly where you need to relocate.
In Idaho, we have a citizen legislature. So our elected state representatives and senators, they're regular people like you and I, who only work 3 to 4 months. It's a part-time legislature from January till usually end of March, maybe mid-April.
Okay.
And that's when they are in the State House and they are passing the laws and they are doing their work. And then the rest of the year, they go back home and most of them hold other jobs, right? They are just regular everyday people. That's why you might bump into them at Fred Meyer and run into them at the coffee shop, because they are regular everyday people like you and I.
Yeah.
So,
which is amazing. And it's not like that everywhere.
No.
Okay.
California is a full-time legislature. So these are,
totally out of touch.
Yeah. Lifetime, all year round, government employees.
Yeah.
It's because it's crammed into 2 to 3 months or 3 to 4 months. It happens at warp speed, the bills that are passed and the things that go through committees and, have to get votes. The primary is when you pick who you want to represent in your party, right? Okay. So there might be 3 Republicans running for state senate in District 20, right?
Okay.
And the Republican voters get to pick who they want. And then the general is in November. And that Republican that got nominated in the primary moves and they're on the ballot in November. And that's when they go up against the Democrat and the Independent and any, constitutional party.
When Kira talks about getting involved, don't assume that people who are moving here are getting involved and doing their due diligence to keep Idaho, Idaho. People really are putting their head in the sand. The primary, my mom called me pretty upset. She said I was the youngest person there to vote. My mom is in her 50s. Everybody else was older than her. And It's a little gut-wrenching to know that people are willing to uproot their entire lives, their families, to come here because they want the freedom that Idaho provides, and they're so passionate about their beliefs and their opinions and how things should go, and they do zero to really research and understand who they should really be voting for and when they should vote, because that was a missed opportunity. Somebody got into office that nobody wanted. And why? It's because it was only the most elderly bunch of them all that showed up. So the family voices were not heard, and the people who really knew which candidate should be elected didn't show up to vote. When you move here, you're probably going to start following some local Idaho influencers, people who go, backpacking and share it, or people who go to the restaurants downtown and share it, or take their kids to all the little places and community events. And they will present themselves again as these conservative people who live in the state of Idaho. They are getting paid to promote the ideas of the parties who are not for your freedom. So for example, when this library stuff was going on, some of the biggest local influencers were talking about how sad, it would be if we couldn't provide the right library services, or they were using all of the verbiage that liberals use to make you feel like you're stripping kids of their education. And the reality is they were being paid to sway votes, and they know that they have these young, impressionable audiences. And so my advice is, don't get your advice from local influencers. They might not even be promoting their actual belief and opinion. They're getting paid good money to make it look like they are. That is their job. They're not your friend. They're not your buddy. And you shouldn't just trust what they're telling you to vote for, because a lot of times, believe me, it is the absolute opposite of what you really want.
The left has targeted Idaho to flip Idaho blue. So like I said, you can't just check out and be complacent, because it is coming. They are trying very hard, and they succeeded in Boise with the mayor.
Okay, so I get calls every day. People are petrified. They want to leave their drug-infested city. They want to leave the city that has people with tents popping up all over on the street. What is the political climate in Idaho like as far as drugs and homelessness are concerned?
We don't have as much of a homeless problem that states like California have, not in any sense.
No.
There are still homeless encampments in Boise. Again, the mayor of Boise has kind of made it easier to be homeless. So you will be, drive under an overpass and see some tents.
But God has made it hard by giving us 4 seasons.
Yes, we do have 4 seasons. So it is hard to be homeless in Idaho because it is cold in the winter.
Yeah.
There are some shelters and some programs that have been set up for homeless. So there has been a slight influx in homelessness in Boise specifically, but it's not nearly the issue that you would see driving down the highway in California and you see just tents lining the freeway. The drugs. So Idaho is strictly anti-drug. Marijuana is not legal in Idaho. We are very pro law enforcement. And that is great. It keeps Idaho cleaner. Now, again, some people go across the border and go over into Oregon to get marijuana and drugs, but predominantly we do not have a drug problem. I don't, in my opinion, in my experience. We did have this program that was instituted called the Idaho Harm Reduction Program, and it was giving out clean needles to drug users, and there has been a huge pushback against that. And I believe that they recently just got raided for the program. I believe that Idaho is a much better place as far as drugs and crime and homelessness compared to those other states that you might be fleeing from.
We got some shim, her, they, thems, LBGQ, alphabet soup things that happen here, and our governor quietly, he does some things okay.
Yes.
He's not all evil stuff all the time. Some of the things he does are good. One of the good things to keep us conservative voters happy, which we are happy about this, he silently signed, what is it? Like you can't.
Yeah, so just this last session, a bill was signed that teachers and school administrators cannot be required to address students and kids by their preferred pronouns, anything that contrasts with their biological gender that they were born with. Everyone is thrilled about, because that's something that just has infiltrated our country and the Western civilization, is this craziness with this woke gender ideology that is just contrary to biology and science.
Mr. Rancher himself, Governor Little, is he a sellout?
So when we first got here, we did realize that his management of COVID was less than ideal for what conservatives wished. He did keep the state in a lockdown or a state of emergency much longer than even a lot of other states. So that was pretty disappointing. Some backstory to that is that the federal money was just flowing in. And so they kept that state of emergency to keep getting the federal money. And so unfortunately, Idaho has become reliant on a lot of federal dollars. And as a sovereign state, I think a lot of conservatives want us to be able to stand on our own and not rely on, the bureaucrats in DC and the money coming from the federal government.
So a lot of people are sitting on the fence, nervous about giving us a call and pulling the trigger on relocating to Idaho. Talk to them.
I really would recommend moving to Idaho. I mean, it is a freer state. You still have to parent your kids. You still have to, you can't just blindly trust, oh, I'm in Idaho, it's conservative, now I can just let them go off to school. Here's your iPhone 15 and have free reign.
Right.
You still need to be the parent and make sure that they don't get influenced by that culture that is so prevalent in our country right now. But it is such a good community, and you will find so many like-minded people that have the same conservative values, that have the same, you might even go to the same church with them, or, and play on the same sports teams. And I think that was really refreshing to me, is we had our kids join some baseball teams and, football teams, and the community is so strong. It was the best decision. And I will say, we went back to California to visit for spring break, just to see some old friends, and we had some time. And it was 1,000% confirmation that we made the right decision moving here. The first month that we lived in Idaho, I went to Costco, and I was getting big bottles of water, and they were heavy. And I was loading them into my car, and this really nice gentleman, probably in his 60s, came up and said, oh, can I help you? Can I help load? And your first reaction, being from California, is, whoa, why is someone approaching me in a parking lot? Because in California, there's a risk there. And that was so just mind-boggling to me, that the community here is so kind and thoughtful and community oriented, that this really nice gentleman that I had never seen before in my life helped me load some heavy stuff into the car. I will say that is the difference between California and a state like Idaho. I remember in California, people would just walk around just with blinders on. They wouldn't even pay attention to people that they would pass by or give a little wave or say hello. In Idaho, you will be waved at. And if you're from California, it might make you uncomfortable at first because you're not used to that. But it is so heartwarming to have that sense of community, even with strangers that you don't know, that just are helping you, load pumpkins in the back of your car for Halloween, or, helping you with some groceries that look heavy. And that was so thoughtful and so different than what I was used to in California.
Everyone is hearing all the time that Idahoans don't like Californians. If there's anyone who can genuinely answer this question, it's you, because you've spent your time out and about talking to people all over the state. So what is that about?
Yeah, so I think that there's a misconception about Californians moving to Idaho, because in the early 2000s, there was an influx of Californians moving to this state. And they were moving here for different reasons than the current influx of Californians moving here. They were moving here because the cost of living was so low. There's so much to do in Idaho, like outdoors.
So much.
A lot of these, like, you know, crunchy granola,
Yeah.
more liberals were moving here and telecommuting, or, you know, like they were able
Right.
to work remote for the nature and the hiking and the mountain biking and the winter sports and just the activity and recreation here. And I do believe that that gave the impression to a lot of native Idahoans that, like, oh my gosh, all these Californians are moving here and they're going to turn our state blue. They're liberal, and they, you know, then COVID hit. And the influx of new Californians that are moving here, they are coming to escape liberalism, wokeism, progressivism in their states. They are political refugees coming here, like my husband and our family. They want freedom, and they are coming, hitting the ground running to keep Idaho red.
Yeah.
So but that stigma is still attached. The native Idahoans still go, oh, Californians, they're liberal and they're going to change our state. And so I think that that's the difference, is that previously there was a wave of Californians that moved that were more liberal and that were more progressive. The majority of the people that are moving now, there are still people that are moving here for you know, the cost of living and the recreation, and we moved here for the recreation and the outdoors and but at the same time we also moved here for freedom, because we knew that Idaho is a state that has the most likelihood to protect us from government overreach, whether it's from the federal level or the state level or the city level. It's a more conservative state.
I know we're friends, and you can tell me I'm wrong if you want to, but I always tell people, if you see someone driving around a jacked up truck with a "Don't Tread on Me" flag and like the American flag with the blue line going through it, they were probably born and raised where?
Probably in California, Oregon, or Washington.
See? Yes.
Like, the people that are moving here really are like, they have been tread on in the states that they came from. And so they are coming to Idaho and they are embracing that, like, do not tread on me ideology of leave me alone, less government is better.
Okay. So when I'm in a Facebook group fight, I can keep saying that because you said I was probably right. That's right. This is some juicy stuff that you got. If you really want to know some juicy things, you got to click on this video, because I'm going to talk about whether or not Idaho is racist. Until the next video, be blessed. And Kira, seriously, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I really hope that everyone who is listening to this takes your advice and gets involved,